Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Season 5 video. And today, we are here with the breakdown for Episode 6. Of course, this most recent episode is probably one of the more well done episodes in terms of covering the content from the light novels, in my opinion. I think they actually nailed a lot of what was in the light novels and actually went a little bit above and beyond, like I'll talk about in this video as well. But honestly, I really want to get into it because, of course, I think a lot of people are obviously realizing to what extent Freya has gone, and of course the gaslighting of Belle that happens throughout this entire episode is very meticulous and very interesting. So let's break it all down. Let's talk about it in this video. So of course, if you guys want to enjoy it as well, remember to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know your thoughts of the episode down below in the comment section down below. As a light novel reader and of course as an anime only, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. Without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So let's start off with the starting scenes, right? I think that's the best place to begin with because, of course, we get introduced to our, a brand new character in Heath Velvet, of course, right? I love this scene. This is, you could easily make such a meme out of this one. Like, you can make a no bitches meme. I've seen some people even make no memories memes as well, which is hilarious. They knew what they were doing at JC Staff. I know what they were doing here. But Heath is basically, I would say, to be quite honest, effectively the second best healer in Orario, effectively. I think she's pretty much up there. She's at least in the top 3 healers in Orario. She's that good. The only person stronger than her in terms of healing capabilities is Dea Saint, or Ahmed, basically. Ahmed Tessanair of the Diane sect familia, who they even mention later on in the episode actually as well, or quite actually soon as well. Yeah, she mentions it right here that the curse is too powerful. The only person who can get rid of something this bad is Dea Saint. Dea Saint is a level 2 adventurer only. Level 2 or level 3, I can't remember exactly Ahmed's level, I think level 2, but her healing capabilities are next level. What she can do is insane. Heath, on the other hand, is definitely also very good, but she's much stronger as a general adventurer, level 4, of course, right? Obviously, we'll take a look at how she, gets involved in the season as time goes on. But all you need to know is that she's going to be an integral character for the rest of the season as well. She's actually going to be a pretty interesting character to follow. And honestly, I really like the VA choice that they've gone for. Ikumi Hasegawa, I think, is the voice actress, right? I think it's Ikumi Hasegawa. Let me just double check. Yeah, it is Ikumi Hasegawa. I had written it down just to make sure I remembered it. She's the voice actress of Lena Vladilena from 86, and more importantly, if you are aware of the Fate franchise or the Type Moon franchise in general, she voices Arc from Tsukihime as well, in the remake, and of course in Fate Grand Order. So if you know her, you know her. She's a very, very good voice actress. I love that they got her for Heath. I'm very excited to see where they go with her, of course, right? In terms of generally the anime and, of course, how they approach her in the anime versus the light novel is going to be very, very interesting. So the starting scene is all about, of course, the fact that, Heath is like, yeah, this guy's gotten a curse. He can't remember shit. He does not remember anything of the Freya familia, which is, again, sort of kind of gaslighting Belle even more so into that whole thing of like, wait, was I always a part of the Freya familia? Have I really lost my memories or something? Or have I gotten amnesia or something? And so it's just everything that's happening in this episode is just trying to force Belle into this idea and this reality basically that's been made by Freya into the fact that he is part of the Freya family. I mean, there's nobody to tell him otherwise, right? Everybody is saying, oh, you're part of Freya family, you're part of Freya family, you're part of Freya family. It's all gaslighting him to believe that, effectively, right? And that is what makes it even more scary and dangerous even. Imagine being a part of this world that you don't even recognize. The people you know don't recognize you. The people you don't know recognize you. The people who you would never see or somebody you see every day technically now. It's just so one of those weird things, of course, right? Now, let's move a little bit ahead to, of course, the starting parts of the episode, the actual true starting parts of the episode as well. Now, of course, one of the things that we see in the episode is actually a lot of the scenes being juggled around. This is actually not something I was expecting to see, to be quite honest, in terms of them juggling around the episode, the contents of the light novel this much. But this is something that Amori even said on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, was that they had to change things around to make the pacing and make the anime make sense, which I think is the right decision, to be quite honest. I think that they made the absolute right decision with this episode, of course, in terms of that, because of course we see obviously Freya talking about Rivera, and actually we'll go on to another scene quickly before we come back to this scene with Hestian Eyes, which I have to talk about. She actually shows off and talks about Rivera, and of course the status snitch item that she was holding actually in the starting part of the episode. That was actually part of the Uranos scene in the light novel. That was actually here. And the funny thing is, the Uranos scene actually takes place later than the Aina scene that we will see over here. Yeah, this Aina scene, right, technically actually happens way before everything else. It happens even before the Urano scene in the light novel, which is quite funny to say the least. But I think it was the right decision here, and I think they made a big brain play here, because if we go back a little bit, right, and this is one thing I really like. So obviously when Freya's talking to Uranos here, right, Uranos has not been charmed, of course, right, by Freya. Makes sense, because obviously if Uranos is charmed, he's the one kind of stopping all the monsters from coming to the overground and everything, right? He's the one controlling the dungeon basically as much as he can, right? Protecting Aurario from the dungeon, you know, absolutely overwhelming them. And of course, one good thing about I really like that they did in the scene was, of course, still mention the Black Dragon. It's going to be a very important part of this season, even if we may not actually see the Black Dragon. It's actually going to be an integral part of this season, so keep an eye out for more mentions of the Black Dragon. It's basically the end game boss for Danmachi, because of course, if you guys didn't know, the entirety of Aurario, as well as all the top familiars, including the Zeus and Hera familiars, were always trying to defeat the three great quests: the Behemoth, the Leviathan, and the Black Dragon. And so, of course, two of them have been already beaten. It's only the Black Dragon that's left. They were the ones to defeat and decimate the Black Dragon, I should say, is the one to defeat and decimate the Zeus and Hera familiars. It's why we don't see them anymore, or we haven't seen any members of them in very, very long. It's because they've been decimated by the Black Dragon. So obviously now, with Bel's arrival and his growth and development being a hero, along with Ai's backstory with the Black Dragon and so on and so forth, it's the end game boss. It is the end game boss. And of course, I feel like the anime hasn't done a fantastic job in, you know, mentioning it that often. But that being said, even Amori has been very loose, and not loose is the wrong word here. He's been very tight-lipped about the Black Dragon, even in the main series, I would say. In the main series light novel, Sword Art Toei, he's been a little bit more open. In the main series, it's only now with the most recent volumes, including, of course, volumes 16 to 18, that he kind of starts pushing towards that agenda more so. So keep an eye out for that, and of course, look into that. But one of the things that they talk about here, of course, right, or Uranos mentions to Felds here, once Freya leaves, is that, you know, the moment he says anything or he tries to do anything to Freya, because Felds is charmed, Felds will immediately report that to Freya immediately. Any sort of just slight move, just a slight nudge, immediately he will go on and tell on Uranos. He will basically report to Freya and basically get Uranos in trouble. So there is that factor that I really like they mentioned here, because it will impact the scene and had impacted the scene with Aina, which very underrated. This was really, really nice. If we move over a little bit and go to the scene here, this was not actually mentioned in the light novels at all. Misha turning around and seeing that Aina was looking at her logbook with Belle, that was not mentioned in the light novel at all. And it's a nice addition that they added into the anime, because it makes sense. You have to kind of show how Aina got reported and why she got reported by Misha, basically, which makes sense. So I really like that, and again, it makes a lot of sense that they juggled the episode around. This is this is what you should be doing. If you're struggling with the pacing and you're struggling with adapting the scenes properly, this is how you have to kind of do things. You have to move scenes around in order to make sense. I think that this is, in my personal opinion, a big brain play from the JC Staff team, to be quite honest. It's a very good decision that they made in moving the scenes around, and it just makes a lot more sense from the anime side of things. I really do believe that they made a good decision here. I think it was very well done. Now we move a little bit earlier to, of course, the eyes scene, of course, right? The Hestia and eyes scene. And I think this is something I think a lot of eyes fans have been wanting to see, of course, right? Is, again, this whole thing of eyes' importance to Belle in this arc, of course, right? Because one of the things that's going to matter a lot in this season is Liaris Freeze, right? Or in this specific section of the light novel is Liaris Freeze, because effectively what Freya is trying to do is snatch away Belle's love and all of his past memories to make new memories. And of course what that means is it'll affect Liaris Freeze indirectly. So obviously Hestia wanted to make sure that Eyes didn't go in front of Belle. The only reason for that is because she didn't want Belle's Liaris Freeze to break immediately, because the problem is if it broke immediately, Eyes would, especially if Eyes were to just reject the idea of who Belle is and everything, Belle would be broken. Belle would immediately break, and obviously Liaris Freeze would break, which would obviously make him unable to resist Freya's influence due to obviously charm and everything. Now, of course, one of the things that we've already seen, right, from obviously when Freya was seer, is that she doesn't necessarily want to charm Belle. She wants it to be as natural as it can possibly be, which, I mean, this isn't very natural, I will say that. So it's a bit contradictory in that sense, but she doesn't want to charm Belle directly necessarily. She wants to break him down and make it so that it at least is as natural as possible without her own goddess powers being put into play, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how people perceive that, in all honesty. I mean, I personally don't think it's natural at all. I still think it's a very unnatural way of going about it, but love is irrational. As I've said in my last breakdown video, love is irrational. Freya is irrational. It doesn't make sense. You'd say that this is not natural love. It isn't natural love, of course, right? Freya tried the natural way of loving Belle, but he rejected her. So this is what's coming. It's coming to, basically, right? So it's in that sense. But I think they did a good job with Eyes and the Hestia scene here, in all honesty. Could they have explained it a little bit better? Maybe, but I think they did a good job here. I mean, again, I don't know what's their... one thing I've realized, right, is the anime for some reason just doesn't want to mention the words Liaris Freeze for some reason. I don't know if it's them wanting to dumb it down in a way so that people, can understand the story in a better way. But I think if you explain that, this is the skill, and we know it's a skill. We know it's the skill since the very beginning of the season. So why not say Liaris Freeze? Belle's infatuation with this girl is the source of his Liaris Freeze. That would have made it a lot better. I think, again, it's one of those nitpicks I have with the anime right now. I feel like it's just, why don't you mention the name of the skill, right? Because it's not that hard. People can research if they want to. People can go out of their way and, ask the question, what is Liaris Freeze? And I would be more than willing to answer. People on the internet will be more than willing to answer. It's just that you just say that it's the source of his strength. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? So I think that's something that they could have done a bit better there, to be quite honest, in my personal opinion. But, that's something that I find it as a little bit of a nitpick, but I feel like it's also a fair, criticism, I feel personally. That's my personal criticism. Now, of course, we come over to this scene, of course, right, with Belle and Freya, and not only the scene, we'll tackle the later scene as well. Now, the main change from this scene, and I would say the only changed scene, I would say, in terms of this episode, I feel like they actually nailed the entirety of this episode in terms of the contents itself, right? You could say it's a less descriptive version of the light novel, but it's still more or less everything that happens in the next couple of chapters from the last episode. It actually is. So I think that's very, very good. But the thing is, instead of wearing a white dress, she wears a black dress. That's about it. That's the only real difference. But I still like the white dress. I think it's a good job. They've done a good job with it and the appearance of it. So that's pretty cool. Now, of course, Belle tries to tell Freya to update his status, of course, right? Because like he says right after, the only one who can update my status is the patron god of my familia. Now, of course, she does update his status thanks to Status Snitch, which, of course, they explain in the anime, which is, of course, very, very good. Now, the one thing that they actually didn't mention in the episode, and a lot of people may not have been aware about it, or people might have questioned it because they might have been like, why didn't it level him up? Why didn't it give him more skills, or whatever it is, right? Why didn't it do any of that? The reason for that is because basically Status Snitch can only update the status of the character or the person or the adventurer. It doesn't level him up, it doesn't give him any skills or anything of that sort. It's a very one-dimensional item, but of course for Freya's purpose and everything, it is very, very useful. And to be honest, it's actually one of those that I would probably say that's actually kind of good, in all honesty. In that sense, generally speaking, people might be like, well, what's the use of an item like this? Well, it can come in handy in situations where, you know, the patron god / goddess may not be around. You know, in a dire situation. It's a very last minute situation, and of course, like Freya said, it's a very rare item, so obviously there's negative connotations to it as well, but it can be useful as well. So it's one of those things where it's like a very tricky situation to, you know, feel like, okay, this item just feels like it's made for Freya only, like this specific scene. But if you think about it, it could actually be used in other scenes as well, or in other situations as well. If you guys okay, I was about to spoil something from Sword Art Oratoria, but I won't at the moment because I know a lot of you guys still haven't, you know, watched Sword Art Oratoria from Danmimo or read the manga, so I'm not gonna spoil it. But there are certain situations that happen in Sword Art Oratoria where I would have argued and said that the Status Snitch thing would have actually been pretty useful in some moments, but of course, that's another situation for another day and another discussion for another day. But of course, this is again feeding into that gaslighting for Bell, of course, because he doesn't know about the Status Snitch item. He doesn't know it exists. So of course, the fact that Freya was able to update his status, it doesn't really help now, does it? It don't really help, of course. It don't really help. So I think this is the fact that this whole gaslighting situation happens is hilarious to me. It is absolutely hilarious to me. Now let's go over to the battle sequence. Now, I do feel like they could have maybe done a better job here. This is like one of the places I would say that maybe they should have shown it in a more brutal way. Obviously, Bell going up against the general members, I think, is fine. I think they actually did an okay job there. But I think him going up against the main executives of the Freya Familia, I think that's where I would have loved to see a little bit more. I mean, we obviously saw him absolutely getting done in, basically. He got cooked. He got really cooked. So it's not like we didn't see him nearly dying effectively in this situation and stuff, but I do think that they could have maybe done a better job in, you know, maybe showing a little bit of the fight as well, you know, him going up against all the members. But yeah, I think it's not bad at all. I think they did a good job in at least showing that he was nearly dead, and the fact that Heath is like, yeah, you'll do it the day after as well, and then the one after that, and the one after that. I love that. I love how Heath's reaction to that was like, yeah, you're gonna have to do it in the next couple of days, buddy, or even after that, to be honest. But yeah, obviously I think that they did a good job at showing how Heath is like the sort of like caretaker of the Freya Familia as well. She's really close to becoming my favorite girl, to be quite honest, in Danmachi. Not my overall favorite girl, but like my favorite girls, I would say, in Danmachi. I would say definitely like top 5, top 10 easily, for sure. She's getting there. I'm really liking her design, and I really like the way she acts and stuff. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, then we obviously have this as well. Obviously at the end, the Freya and Bell scene again as well, where they're talking about Bell's iteration and, you know, life as well, and then Freya, of course, talking about what what she perceives as well from her perspective as to what happened, of course, right? What happened. And of course, this time around, she obviously has Aina's logbook to help her out, because it basically gives the same information that Bell already knows about, but from her perspective, which kind of makes it even more muddied for Bell, and it even gaslights him more as well. So it's pretty it is very difficult to take in. I mean, like I said, I think this is Freya at her most malicious. This is really Freya at her most malicious. I feel like this entire, I remember reading this section and I was really disliking how, you know, the way she was approaching things, because of course that's a villainous thing to do. And I mean, even if you think you really like a character as well because of what they were and stuff like that, and how they've, you know, managed to manipulate everything as well, it's difficult to take in, you know, it's difficult to take in from my perspective as well. But of course, you know, this is obviously, I feel like a good thing that Amori was doing in the light novels, and I'm glad that they did it in the anime as well, because you have to kind of portray this character as a villain, because that is the point. Why you can't go halfsies at all with this one, right? You can't go halfsies, at least at the in this section of the, you know, in the middle part of the arc, right? You cannot go halfsies with this one at all, because if you do, you're going to make people be like, well, is she really a villain? No, you can't really make that question just yet. You start asking that question later on if you want to make her into a sort of like half hero, not half hero, but like half lost girl, like lost soul, half villain sort of character. You know, you want to go for that, you do it later on. I really do think that they will go down that route just because of the way she behaved as Seer and stuff like that. I genuinely do believe that they'll go down that route, but we'll have to wait and see, of course, right? Maybe she just stays this way, which is also entirely possible, but I hope that's not the case, because I like Freya a lot, so I'd hope that wouldn't be the case. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, in the anime as well, and figure out if that happens or not. But this was gaslighting to another degree, man. This was gaslighting to another degree. And to be honest, even at the end, right, this whole scene of like you know, Freya obviously you know, acting like a little bit of a girl, like a, you know, somebody who has a crush on their you know, classmate or something. It again looks like she's a very innocent soul that's just extremely lost. It just, this is one where I was like, even in the light novel, I was like, very interesting perspective, because you wouldn't imagine her acting so free and like, you know, open after such a small innocuous thing, you know. It just feels such a weird thing. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the next episode, of course, right? We'll see what happens in episode 7, which is called Loneliness. This is, I think, going to be focused a lot on, you know, obviously I think Hestia is still trying to, you know, deal with the fact that she's the only one who has any sort of knowledge of what happened before. Same with Belle, of course, right? I think we'll look at Belle, Hestia. Maybe we might finally come back to Ryu and Osfi as well, because we still don't know what's happened to them. Were they able to get out of the charm? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, no, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens. Let me know what you guys thought about in terms of this episode. Did you guys like it, dislike it? Your thoughts in the comment section down below would be very much appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.